I thought the hardest day of my life was the afternoon I stood beside my wife Eleanor's grave and watched the last handful of dirt fall onto her casket. I was wrong. The hardest day came 6 weeks later, when a probate judge looked around a silent courtroom and said, "Mrs. Eleanor Mitchell left one final request. Her estate cannot be settled until everyone hears her words exactly as she wrote them." You could feel the air change. My daughter Emily, sitting 2 rows ahead of me, exchanged a puzzled glance with her younger brother, Daniel. They had been whispering about paperwork and property taxes before the hearing began. Now neither of them spoke. I didn't speak either. After 38 years of marriage, I thought I knew everything about Eleanor. Apparently, I didn't. Our family attorney, Margaret Lawson, stood and carried a weathered leather folder to the judge. I recognized it immediately. Eleanor had kept that folder in the bottom drawer of her writing desk, the one she always locked. Whenever I teased her about keeping secrets, she'd smile and say, "Some things are surprises waiting for the right moment." I never imagined this was the surprise she meant. Judge Bennett adjusted his glasses before opening the folder. Mrs. Mitchell requested that this letter be read aloud in the presence of every beneficiary. His calm voice echoed through the courtroom. Then he began. "If you're hearing this, it means I've finally run out of time to say these things myself. Please don't be angry that I gathered you here. Families rarely stop long enough to listen unless life gives them no other choice." A lump formed in my throat. Even on paper, I could hear Eleanor's voice. Gentle. Patient. Certain. "Richard, I know you're already blaming yourself for losing me. Please don't. You gave me 38 beautiful years. Don't spend the rest of yours trying to rewrite the ending." I lowered my head. No one knew how often I'd replayed those last weeks in the hospital, wondering if I should have insisted on another specialist or recognized the signs sooner. Somehow, Eleanor knew exactly what guilt I would carry after she was gone. The judge paused just long enough for the room to settle before continuing. "Emily, my sweet girl, you've convinced yourself that being busy is the same as being strong. It isn't. I never doubted your love. I only missed your time." Emily's shoulders stiffened. She stared at the floor. I remembered all the holidays she'd missed because of double shifts at the children's hospital. Eleanor had never complained. She always defended Emily, saying she was helping families who needed her. But I also remembered the evenings Eleanor quietly set an extra place at the table before sighing and putting it away again. "Daniel." My son's confident expression disappeared the moment he heard his name. "You inherited your father's determination and my stubbornness. It's a difficult combination. You don't have to fight every battle alone." Daniel swallowed hard. Margaret reached into the folder and removed several sealed envelopes. Each one had a name written across the front in Eleanor's unmistakable handwriting. Mine. Emily's. Daniel's. Even Margaret had one. The judge looked around the room. Mrs. Mitchell instructed that no envelope is to be opened until her letter is finished. The mystery only deepened. I watched Daniel glance toward his envelope more than once. He'd always hated unanswered questions. So had I. The judge resumed reading. "There's something I've never told any of you because I didn't want gratitude. Love that expects applause isn't really love." The courtroom grew impossibly quiet. 3 years ago, Daniel's business nearly failed. He asked for a loan at the bank and was turned away. He never told anyone because he believed asking family for help would make him a failure. Daniel slowly closed his eyes. His wife reached for his hand. He didn't pull away. Richard wanted to mortgage the house to help him, but he never knew there was no need. "I quietly paid the debt using money from an investment your grandmother left me years ago." Daniel's head snapped upward. "What?" The word escaped before he could stop it. His eyes found mine. "Dad, you knew?" I shook my head. No. I barely recognized my own voice. I swear, son. I had no idea. Daniel looked toward Margaret. She gave a small, sympathetic nod. It was exactly as Eleanor instructed. My son covered his face with both hands. For years he'd thanked luck for saving his business. Now he discovered luck had a name. It was Mom. The judge continued. Daniel, if you're angry that I kept this from you, I understand. But I wanted you to succeed without believing you owed anyone. Your confidence had to belong to you, not to my sacrifice. Several people quietly wiped away tears. Including me. I suddenly remembered the weekend Eleanor insisted we postpone replacing our old roof. She'd laughed and said, "It's ugly, but it'll survive another year." I'd argued with her for days. Now I understood why she had been protecting every dollar. Not for herself. For our son. The judge turned another page. Emily. She looked up slowly. The day you canceled dinner because another little girl needed emergency surgery, I cried after hanging up the phone. Not because you chose your patient over me, but because you apologized as though loving others required you to love us less. Emily pressed trembling fingers against her lips. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought she understood. I wanted to tell her that Eleanor had understood. She always had. Understanding, however, didn't erase loneliness. The courtroom felt smaller now. Less like a legal proceeding. More like our living room after one of Eleanor's holiday dinners, when difficult conversation somehow became safe because she was there. Except she wasn't. Only her words remained. Judge Bennett carefully unfolded the final pages. I believe, he said softly, Mrs. Mitchell's letter now reaches the reason she asked all of you to gather today. Every eye in the courtroom lifted. Even the clerk stopped writing. The silence was so complete that I could hear the old courthouse clock ticking behind the judge's bench. Then he began reading Eleanor's final message. Everything I leave behind has already been counted by lawyers. But the things that truly matter, those can only be counted by the people willing to tell each other the truth. No one moved. The courtroom remained so quiet that I could hear someone quietly crying in the back row. Judge Bennett looked down at the final pages and continued. Before any envelope is opened, I have one last request. I don't want perfect children or a perfect husband. I only want honest ones. A long silence followed. Then something unexpected happened. Daniel stood. He didn't look at the judge. He looked at me. Dad. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I kept pretending everything was fine because I wanted you and Mom to think I'd made it on my own. I was drowning. I almost lost everything. He rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. I was too proud to admit I needed help. I stood and walked the few steps between us. For a moment, we simply looked at each other. Then I wrapped my arms around my son. You never had to earn being our son, I whispered. You already were. I felt his shoulders shake as years of quiet pressure finally gave way. When we stepped apart, Emily was already wiping tears from her cheeks. She slowly rose from her seat. I owe both of you an apology. She looked at me first. Then at her brother. I kept saying I'd visit next weekend. I'd call tomorrow. I'd take Mom out once things slowed down. She gave a sad laugh. They never slowed down. Her voice trembled. I thought there would always be another birthday, another Christmas, another Sunday dinner. She looked toward the empty chair where no one sat. I'm so sorry, Mom. I reached for her hand. There isn't a parent alive who wouldn't be proud to call you their daughter. Emily shook her head. I was a good nurse. She smiled through tears. I should have remembered to be a better daughter, too. Judge Bennett waited patiently before speaking. Mrs. Mitchell anticipated moments like these. He nodded toward Margaret. The envelopes may now be opened. The sound of paper breaking filled the courtroom. Inside my envelope wasn't a legal document. It was another handwritten letter. The first line blurred as tears filled my eyes. Richard, if you're reading this, you've already done the hardest part. You stayed. I smiled despite myself. Eleanor always knew exactly which words I needed. I know you'll be tempted to live quietly and spend the rest of your days missing me. Please don't. Plant tomatoes even though I'll never complain they're growing too fast. Take the long drives we always postponed. Invite the grandchildren over even if they leave fingerprints on every window. Most importantly, don't mistake loyalty to my memory for permission to stop living. I had to pause. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. Across the aisle, Emily quietly laughed through her tears. My letter. She whispered. Daniel leaned closer. What does it say? She swallowed. Mom says she doesn't want flowers on her birthday. Everyone looked at her. She wants us to spend the day together instead. Daniel unfolded the second page of his own letter. His expression softened. Mine says, she knew I would try to repay the money if I ever found out. He looked toward Margaret. There isn't any account number. Margaret smiled. There never was. Daniel looked confused. She answered before he could ask. Eleanor instructed that if you insisted on paying the money back. Margaret opened another folder. You should instead donate the same amount over time to help young entrepreneurs who couldn't qualify for traditional business loans. Daniel stared at the document. His eyes filled again. That's exactly what she'd do. Margaret nodded. She knew. Emily looked at the final page of her own letter. Mine says I should stop apologizing for loving people. She smiled softly. But start making time for the people who love me back. No one spoke for several seconds. Then Judge Bennett folded Eleanor's original letter. There remains one final matter. Margaret handed him the official estate documents. The estate has been divided equally between Richard, Emily, and Daniel. There were no hidden conditions. No surprise millionaire. No dramatic disinheritance. Only fairness. Only love. Judge Bennett smiled gently. I've presided over probate cases for nearly 30 years. He removed his glasses. I've watched families destroy themselves over far less. He looked around the room. Today is the first time I've seen an inheritance make people richer before they received a single dollar. Those words stayed with me. Months passed. Winter gave way to spring. One Saturday morning, I packed Eleanor's old picnic basket and drove to the little lakeside park where we'd celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and ordinary weekends for nearly 4 decades. Emily arrived first with homemade lemonade. Daniel came carrying hamburgers for the grill. The grandchildren ran ahead, laughing as they chased ducks along the shoreline. For the first time in years, no one seemed to be checking a watch. No one was rushing somewhere else. We simply sat together. At one point, my youngest granddaughter climbed onto my lap. Grandpa? Yes, sweetheart. What was Grandma like? I looked across the lake, where sunlight danced across the water. I smiled. She was the kind of person who could walk into a room full of worried people and somehow make everyone believe things would be okay. The little girl nodded seriously. I wish I knew her. I kissed the top of her head. You do. She frowned. I do. I pointed toward Emily helping Daniel set the picnic table while laughing about something neither of them could remember 5 minutes later. Then I pointed to Daniel showing his nephew how to flip a burger without dropping it. Every time your mom chooses family over one more hour at work. Every time your uncle helps someone who needs a chance. Every time we forgive each other instead of keeping score. That's your grandma. The little girl smiled. I think I'd like her. So would everyone. As the afternoon sun settled lower, I reached into my jacket pocket and unfolded Eleanor's letter one more time. Near the bottom, beneath everything else, she'd written one final sentence. If my last wish surprises everyone in that courtroom, then maybe they'll finally remember what I've been trying to teach them all along. The greatest inheritance isn't what we leave to the people we love. It's the people we leave behind who still know how to love one another. I folded the letter carefully and looked at my family. For weeks, I'd believed Eleanor's final wish had shocked everyone in that courtroom. Standing there beside the lake, I finally understood. It hadn't been meant to shock us. It had been meant to wake us up. And somehow, even after saying goodbye, the woman I loved most had brought us home.